guys, today I will show you guys how I made my early Christmas dinner for my friends. I have been meaning to treat my friends to a nice dinner, so today is the perfect occasion. Starting by prepping the chicken, I washed and trimmed the excess fat. As you will see here, I washed with vinegar, some warm water, and then I removed the fats, the gunks, and all of those things we don't want in our food. There's some controversies out there against washing chicken, but I don't care. Over here, I am not stopping this habit. All you need to do afterwards is just wash the sink and you'll be fine. For the next container, I added some salt, thyme, rosemary, paprika, some garlic powder, some black pepper, some chili flakes, and cumin. And then also I chopped up some parsley, which will be added to the mixture of my seasoning paste. I was running against the clock. I did everything, but I was thankful. I just wanted to show to my friends how much I appreciate them. So I wanted to give them this dinner. I wasn't feeling tired at the end of everything, which is so surprising to many people, but I was very happy to have made this for my friends. And I did the same with everything else, and then I added everything to a Ziploc bag, and then I just kept in the fridge until I was ready to use the chicken, which was, I think, on the I think 2 days later. So I moved on to making the desserts. I added 400 milliliters, about 475 milliliters of heavy whipping cream, which I added castor sugar and vanilla essence, and I whipped that up really well to make a nice consistency. Don't over whip it, please. And then to another bowl, I mixed mascarpone and a little bit of the cream, just to kind of like blend well the mascarpone first, and then I added all of the mascarpone mixture to the cream that I had whipped previously, which made this rich and smooth kind of tiramisu base. I know it's not traditional, but it was really delicious. And then to a cake tin, I added some ladyfingers, which I dipped in brewed coffee. I let it cool down before I dipped the ladyfingers. I covered the entire bottom of the tin, and I added the cream mixture, and then I added some cocoa powder, and then I grated chocolate and I added on top of the cocoa powder because I really love chocolate, and I just thought I had to, be extra. Then I added another layer of ladyfingers plus the cream mixture, and then I went on to make the ganache. I warmed up the milk, and then I had some chocolate cut it up, and I added it to the chocolate, and it was a 1-to-1 ganache, like it was equal parts chocolate and equal parts ganache. And then I melted the white chocolate because I wanted to make a drawing on top of the ganache. So here you see me adding the ganache on top of the dessert, and then I added the white chocolate, and then I just did this beautiful drawing. Don't worry, you guys, the white chocolate will look really white when it cools down. Here you see it a little bit better. And then on the day of the dinner, I started by making the bread, and I added a cup of milk, some yeast, and I let that kind of, the yeast activate. And then to a pan, I started making the soup. Added some onions, garlic, potatoes, leeks, cumin, of course, can never miss cumin, black pepper, and then some stock cubes. If you don't know cumin, you have to integrate in your cooking. It's so delicious. And then I added some 2 liters, I think about 2 liters of water, and then 3 bay leaves. Never 1, never 2, always 3. And then I added the flour to the bread, to make the mixture actually. And then I kneaded that so much. I think I kneaded for about 12 minutes. You have to knead it really well, and then throughout the process, make sure to add 1/4 cup of butter. And I kneaded really well, and then I did like the silk test, like where you stretch the dough. By the end of the kneading, I stretched the dough to see if it would rip, and it did not rip, which indicates that the dough had been kneaded really well. And you can let the yeast do its action in the bowl, and the dough will come out really nicely and fluffy when you're ready to use it. I put it here in the bowl, and I let it proof for about an hour. We're making bread, so you have to have patience. Have to be patient. You have to wait a considerable amount of time. So yeah, my microwave has a good function, like a proofing function, so I took advantage of that to proof the bread. And then I started making the rice, starting up putting some oil, onions, garlic, cumin, of course, bay leaves, to the rice, fennel seeds. Fennel seeds are so fragrant. And then I added 1.5 cups of rice, and then I toasted it, and then I removed the bay leaves, and then I added some about 3 cups of water, because 1.5 times 2 is equal to 3. So that's how the ratio for rice making works. I went ahead and blended soup. It was nice and creamy. I know it looks watery, but then it turned out to be creamy. And then I went ahead to make the filling for the bread, which was butter, salt, garlic, parsley, a little bit of olive oil, not a lot, just a little bit, and then chili flakes. And then to the rice, the finishing touches, I added butter and parsley. I tell you guys, if you do this every single time, you will thank me later. It is the best method to cook your rice, and just prep it. It was so delicious. I bagged it up, I wrapped it up, and then I boiled the water for mac and cheese, and then I saw that the bread had proof, so I spread it on the counter. I was making sure to roll the dough into a rectangle, because it just looks much better when it's a rectangle, and I was able to cut it much in a better way after I added the spreading and the cheese. You'll see, just watch. So here I stretched the dough really well, ensuring that everything is in the shape that I like. And then I added the filling really well throughout the dough. Yeah, and then I added some cheese, mozzarella cheese. It was so delicious. And then I made sure to add all of the necessary amount of cheese, because here we love cheese. And then here you just see me cutting into vertical strips, making sure that everything is correct. And then I stacked all of the squares on top of each other. You will see here in the transition. Just make sure everything's incorporated. And then I went to add to the baking dish, or baking silicone, whatever. I added it up to the dish or the mold, and then I let it proof for 30 minutes. Not 60, but 30 minutes. And then you'll see me running to the grocery store because I ran out of cheese. And then I started by making the pizza rolls, which would be for the entrees, for like the appetizer. It was like it was very budget. It was like on budget. It was very nice. Although it was affordable, it was very delicious. Here you just see me adding like some ham, cheese, some green onions, and then some basilicum powder with like all the Italian spices. And I cut it up into equal sizes, almost equal, but you get what I mean. And then I put some eggs on top, and then I just continue doing it for the rest of everything. And then here I was in a rush, and you'll see that many clips were not recorded. Mac and cheese, the roux burned twice because I had to use my neighbor's oven, and I forgot about the roux 2 times, so I had to restart it many times. It was so chaotic. And then I had the bread. I took the bread to bake, and it was just like I was almost done. I just needed to grill the chicken. The chicken was in the air fryer. I had mashed potatoes, which I didn't record, but the mashed potatoes I added some garlic thyme, and it was just so delicious. They were so garlicky, they were so creamy, they were so lovely. And then I also made some cinnamon roll inspired palmiers, and then also a charcuterie board. And then everything in the green beans, and then caramelized carrots. I also didn't record, but I made it. And then it was just so lovely. Everyone was so happy. And then we had someone in here who did a performance, and it was just like the most lovely evening to spend with my friends. And you'll see the dessert and then the performance in about a few seconds. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time. Bye bye.